Okay, it is story time today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so nerve-sighted to tell this story. Um, so I guess we'll just jump right in. As a lot of you know, if you've been following the podcast or if you've been following along on social media, shameless plug for the Instagram, which is at Aligned Heart Adventures. I run the Instagram, I run the Substack, I run the podcast, and the YouTube channel. I know it's a lot. I also run another Instagram account and another podcast and another Facebook page and a business. And I have two kids and I train and I'm married and, just a couple little things that I'm doing on the side for funsies. It's lots of fun. If you feel like joining along on this wild adventure, which is all about finding alignment in nature with core values and true identity and having lots of fun and feeling empowered to go and step into more more fun, more freedom, more excitement, more alignment, more aliveness. That's the place to be. That's where we're hanging out, mostly on Instagram, because I'm a millennial, and that's where we hang out. Is that in Facebook? But Facebook is a little less engagement friendly, so Instagram is where we hang. Okay, enough about that. But if you've been there, you know that over the last 8 months, starting in September 2025, I got this wild and crazy idea that I wanted to be an ultra marathon runner. I know, right? Who does that? I don't know. I don't know who does that. Apparently, 0.0014% of the population, and that's how many women around the world run ultra marathons. And I was like, that sounds right. That sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. I've never even run a full marathon before. The most I had run was Hood to Coast in 2009. If you're familiar with that race, it's a relay, so it's not even like I had run big miles straight. I had hiked a bunch of 50K, not 50K, I'm sorry, 25-mile days. So I was uh, familiar with being on my feet for long periods of time, but never running. So hired myself a coach and started training. I had just turned 41 and fresh into this midlife awakening is like what I like to call it. I started running and loved it. I mean, I had been a runner, a street runner, road runner in my late 20s, kind of early 30s, and had gotten injured over and over and over and over again. So I kind of just gave it up and had done occasional trail running. And I really like trail running, shocker, because I'm a hiker and a backpacker and I love being on trail. There's something so forgiving about earth and dirt. Um, and I love the entertainment of rocks and roots and twists and turns. I just love it. So naturally, I was having a blast and convinced four of my friends to also join in the craziness of ultramarathon training, and then convinced some other friends to run the marathon that the Wild Woman rail run, trail run was putting on in June. So we had lots of time to train. And so we trained together, which was so much fun. And I loved it. We were doing runs in Forest Park. We were doing hikes together. We had a group chat where we were like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. This is so hard. What's your long run? What's yours? Or how much are you eating? How much, what gels are you using? What shoes did you buy? We just, the whole thing. And it was so fun. And then in December, I got shin splints and it was awful. It was awful. And it actually sidelined the podcast for a couple of months because it was this huge barrier that I didn't see coming. because I was working with a coach. And I thought, I hired a coach who's a physical therapist because I know my history of injury and I don't want to get injured. So that's why I hired a coach. So I'm not going to get injured, obviously. Um, well, injury is inevitable when you're active. And so I spent 4 months, 4 months of my training block rehabbing those darn shin splints. And that was so hard mentally, emotionally, and physically. It was really hard. Uh, it was tough. And I missed out on a lot of training runs with my friends, which was tough. Sometimes they would walk with me, which was so sweet of them. They were so great. I remember one time we did this long trail through Forest Park and we were all hiking it together. And this group of runners passed us and they were like, strong effort. And I wanted to yell back, I can run, I'm just injured. Obviously, I didn't. And I said, thanks. But it was tough. It was tough. And so finally, 4 months later, right around April, uh, kind of end of March, April, rehabbed it just in time for my very first 30K, the Gorge Waterfalls, which amazing race, super technical, really difficult, 3,000 feet of elevation gain and loss. Amazing race, super fun, super challenging. Really tested my fueling and nutrition. Um, it was so fun. Did it with two of the girls who were training for Wild Woman for the 50K. And that was great. And my legs did great. My shins did great. I thought I was in the clear. So went forward with my training plan. And we had this one day of training that had us running up to a place in Portland called Pittock Mansion. And Pittock Mansion is beautiful and it was so fun. And we kind of ran hiked our way up and then ran down and then ran hiked our way back up and ran hiked our way back down. And that was the beginning of the end, but I didn't know it. So a few runs later, my foot started to hurt. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funky. And so I talked to the coach. She's like, it's fine. And kind of, used some KT tape, bandaged it up. Foot kept hurting. So my coach had gone on maternity leave. So we had kind of a sub coach. And so I was kind of tag teaming between the two of them, trying to figure out what on earth to do because it was 3 weeks until the race. And I was starting to get a little panicky because I had worked so hard to overcome shin splints to get here. And so I kept running and run walking at that point and KT taping and doing physical therapy exercises to try to help it. And I got to a point 3 weeks before the race where I couldn't walk normally. I couldn't walk normally without pain. And I knew I was done. I knew it. And so I was driving home from camping with my daughter actually. And I just started bawling in the car. And my daughter was like, what's wrong, Mommy? And I said, I'm not going to be able to run my race. I know I can't do it on this foot. There's no way. I'm going to be race ready for 31 miles in 3 weeks. There's no way. So I drove myself to urgent care, got an x-ray, and it turns out that it was not a fracture like I was afraid of. However, there's an accessory navicular bone, which is a bone in the inside part of your ankle, your foot, excuse me. And I have an extra. Cool. Except it's not cool because then it irritates the posterior tibialis. And if you've ever had post-tib irritation, whew, you know what I'm talking about. It's that pain on the side of your foot that kind of goes down into your arch. Ugh. And it hurts and it aches and it pings and it's awful. So I spent 2 weeks in a boot. And if you followed on Instagram, you followed the adventures of the boot in the wild. And it helped tremendously. It caused other issues, which I'm dealing with now. but it helped a lot. And I saw a physical therapist, I saw a podiatrist who actually gave me a little bit of false hope and was like, "Oh yeah, the race isn't off the table." Friends, it was totally off the table. There's no way that I wouldn't have blown up that poor tendon if I had tried to even walk 31 miles. There's no way. Um, so I had 3 weeks to kind of wrap my head around this injury, this setback again, another setback, and to figure out what to do. And as I was trying to figure out what to do, Rachel Entricken was running the Cocodona 250. And if you're not sure what the Cocodona 250 is, it is an ultra marathon race that takes place in Arizona. And it is 250 miles of desert running. And there's like 44,000 feet of elevation gain. It is a feat of strength. And this woman, Rachel Entricken, was kicking ass and taking names on the trail. She was just killing it. And she won. And she set a new course record. So she's our queen. And I was listening to all these podcast interviews that she was doing. And one of them, she was talking about how she intentionally does ultra marathons, like these big ones, these like ultra marathons. And she does these because she likes it when it gets tough and uncomfortable, because she wants to see who emerges when things get tough, because she wants to be proud of the version of herself that emerges when things get tough. And that just landed in my soul like this message that I just needed to hear, because things kept getting tough. And I feel like that's been the theme of the last 4 years, specifically of my life, is that when things get tough, who is the person that shows up? And am I proud of her? And things are tough, who's showing up? And what would she do that I could be proud of? And so, a thing you should know about me is that I've never been an athlete in my entire life, ever. I was a cheerleader at my Christian high school for 3 years, and I played softball for one season when I was 9 on Team Gotcha. That's the extent of my athletic prowess. Like, not an athlete. I've never, besides that one season, played on team sports. So I have no clue about any of it. I don't know about team culture. I don't know anything about it. But what I've gathered from having a son and a husband who are very much into team sports is that when you're injured, you still suit up and you still show up at the games. You don't not go, you show up and you support your team, and you clap and cheer on the sidelines and you root for your team. That's just what you do. And so I trained as part of a team, as part of a group. And so I wanted to suit up and show up and cheer my team on. And that was something that I knew I could be proud of. And so that was the decision that I made, is that I wanted to show up and support these incredible women, because I knew how hard they worked, how much they sacrificed, how many hours they spent not only running, but also doing mobility work, educating themselves on nutrition, educating themselves on form, technique, fueling. My God, fueling. Learning about how to fuel your body is a whole thing, and it always is changing. So it's like you never master it. You're just always learning about it, and about what you need and what your body needs and how to work with your cycles. And so it's a whole thing, and I knew that. And I wanted to honor that for them. So that was what I decided to do. And I was trying to figure out how to show up in a way where I wasn't devastated, because I was devastated. I'd been training for 8 months for this event, and it wasn't so much about the race. And a lot of people were like, just sign up for another one, which told me that maybe they misunderstood the importance that I had placed, because it was not just about the race. It wasn't just a race to me. It was about being with these women who were doing something for the first time. We were all doing something extraordinary for the first time. Like I said, 0.0014% of the female population of the world attempt to do this thing. And the four of us were doing it. The five of us, excuse me, we're doing it together. And that's what felt so connecting, is that I was in this group with my friends, and it felt so important, this thing that we were doing. And then to be fractured off from that just felt devastating. I can't tell you how many times I cried about it. And I'm not a crier. That's not, I don't say that proudly. I say that with a little bit of sadness. Like, I wish I had more easy access to that. I do now. Now I cry often, because injury has taught me that tears are so cleansing and so important and necessary. And I can see how there have been times in my life where I've needed to cry and I haven't. And so I feel like I've cried for those times as well, which is funny because that's how grief works. In my work in the world, I'm a certified brain spotting practitioner and empowerment coach, which means that I get to sit with women and help them gain access to some of the emotions that they are not as familiar with: anger, grief, loss, longing, sadness, disappointment, guilt, shame. I help people sit in that and support that and hold that space for women. So it's, I see it all the time, and I experience it vicariously. And so I think what I know about grief is that we don't grieve things in isolation. We grieve things previously. And so I think that this grief of the race brought up other griefs too. So when I say that I was devastated, wasn't just about the race. It was about so many griefs that have happened in my life, and there's been a lot. And we don't have time for that today. But what I'm trying to convey to you is that it was going to be tough. It was going to be tough to show up. And I was trying to figure out how best to do it so that it wasn't about me being sad about missing out, but that it was about these women, and that it was about their journey and about their triumph and their race. And that's what it was about. So that's what I decided to do. So fast forward to Friday of last week, I get there, and I pull in to this field, and I pull in next to my girl Kirsten, who is my adventure bestie, and I start sobbing. I lose it in the car, and I'm like, oh no. Okay, we're just gonna do our best. I immediately knew it was gonna be so much harder than I bargained for, or that I had been able to mentally prepare myself for, because there were going to be at least 300 women there who were going to be running in either the 50K, the marathon, or the half marathon. So I did the best I could, and I showed up as much as I could, as fully as I could, there prepared to serve. And so my story was, hi, I'm Kim. I trained for this for 8 months, but 3 weeks ago I got injured, and so I can't run, but I'm here to serve. So whatever you need, you just let me know. I've got a backpack full of anything you could need. So I've got extras of everything. You just let me know. And It was tremendous. It was tremendous. There was a highlight that I just have to tell you about. So we spent the evening Friday night just prepping, got our tent set up. We had a potluck uh, where everybody like brought food. I mean, I know that's what a potluck is, but it just was a ton of food and it was so delicious. And then we got to hear Rachel Entricken talk, which was so fun. Angie Lake is one of the co-founders and directors of the Wild Woman Run, and she was interviewing Rachel, and they were reclaiming these words that typically get used to kind of put women down. Words like bossy, oh, what were the other words? Goodness, bossy's pops into mind because I was called bossy a lot. Um, but anyway, words that just get weaponized against women. And so hearing Rachel talk was, of course, just gold because she has so much wisdom and so many nuggets that she talks about often. So got to hear her speak, and then everybody was kind of buzzing afterwards. So went to bed. It was so windy that night. The tent flaps were just going crazy. So windy. Woke up the next morning at 5 a.m. and it was go time. It was race day. So we were packing up everybody's drop bags, getting ready. Of course, my cycle decided to start because, of course, why not? It was going to be a hard day, and my cycle decided to pop in. So that was magical and special. So I was dealing with that, and when I came back to the kind of area where we were all camped out, because it was a whole weekend event in this big field area, and all of our tents were together. And so when I came back over, four of my friends were kind of standing together, and I was like, "Oh, let me take your picture." And they were like, "Yeah, can you take a picture?" And I was like, "I just said that." Yeah, here's my camera. And I look up and I look at them and I see that they have tattoos on, three of them have it on their arms and Kirsten has it on her leg. And I look close, I'm like, what's on your oh they got my face in temporary tattoos and put it on their bodies so that they could carry me with them on the run. Oh my gosh, I ugly sobbed. Like I haven't ugly sobbed in a couple years. This was the loudest. I had to walk away because it was so loud. Just heaving sobs of just love. I couldn't believe this act, like this gesture meant so. Even now, I'm getting a little choked up because it meant so much to me to be seen and to be loved and cared for in that way. So they had the girls that were running the marathon, they had them on as well. So my face was just bopping around the race. So it was such a special moment of recognition and honoring, and then just, oh, I don't know that I've had anybody do something as kind as that. So that was such a beautiful moment. Thanks, Erica, for thinking of that. Wow. They even had a separate group chat just to coordinate and organize that so that I wouldn't know about it. So got them all set up. That was incredible. Got them to the starting line and had video of them taking off, to which I sobbed again. And then got the marathon girls off on their start line, cried some more. There was so much crying behind the scenes this weekend. It was a mixture of pride for these women. So proud of them. Oh, I can't even tell you the depth of how proud I am. It was grief of not being able to do it. It was tears of jealousy, if I'm being honest with you. So jealous of all 300 of these women who did not get injured to the point where they couldn't run. And somehow I did. Um, it was tears of joy for being surrounded by so many women. Oh, that was so incredible. Like, girl power, yes, please. Wild women, here you go. So I got them off, and then I had decided to be a crew boss. I've never I've never run a crew before, but here we go. So there was an aid station that every runner on the 50K had to go through twice. So I grabbed everybody's drop bags and had them by the tree, and so I got to see all of my friends twice on the trail, which was so fun. It was so fun and such joy just to see them come running in looking so strong, so powerful, just in the zone. Um, and just to be able to be like, okay, what do you need? Oh, so fun. Um, One of my friends did decide on the second lap at mile 18 that her knee was just, it was hurting so bad. And I saw her kind of limping in that second lap and just felt heartbroken for her. And so she decided that that was her finish line, which I feel like was so powerful. Um, I feel like that's the mark of a true athlete is being able to call it when you need to versus when you want to, and really honoring your body and having nothing to prove and saying, you know what, this is it for me. And I'm going to listen to my body. My body says stop, and I'm not going to argue. This is where my race ends for me, and I'm going to be okay with that. Holy cow. Like, that's incredible. And so, hats off to her. That was such a powerful moment to witness. She's my hero. That's incredible. And 18 miles is still, that is such a long way to run. I think when we're training for these distances, you get desensitized to miles and you forget how far these miles actually are. And that, it's like, oh, well, it was only 18 miles. No, girl, it was 18 miles. You were out there for hours running. Like, dang. And this woman has completed so many events. She's done Ragnar's, she's done Ironmans, she's done marathons. She just did the LA Marathon last year. She's such a baddie. I mean, this is not her first rodeo. So she's gonna nail it. I know it. So I got her set up in a cold plunge when we got back to base camp and camped out by the finish line waiting for the girls. And that was, it was so dreamy. It was incredible seeing, because you could see them come from across the street over the field, just running through the field toward the finish line. Oh, it was so fun just watching them and getting the video footage of them crossing, and how each one of them had just like the funnest, silliest, like crossing of the line and just like the little dance that they did. And you could just tell that they were so proud and that they showed up with such energy too. Like, I think I would have been dragging ass across that finish line. And these girls showed up and were just like, yeah, I did it. And they were just so in their power. And I think a lot of that speaks to this community of women, because the Wild Woman 50K was just women. That's it. And so many of them were running their very first, which was incredible. And so it just speaks to the power of women supporting women. And I think that especially in the ultra community, it is a lot of men who do it. And so women are still behind in their representation. And so I just love this idea of women infiltrating these sports more and more. So if you've ever considered ultramarathon running, 10 out of 10 recommend. I have a lot of things to say about it, and I have a podcast episode you should listen to first, just because you should know what you're getting into, because it's a whole thing. But totally worth it. 1000%. I would never go back. I don't regret a single thing. I don't regret a single moment. I don't regret any of it. I don't regret coaching. I don't regret getting injured. I'm sad about it, but I don't regret it. I don't regret any of the time I spent learning about all of this at all, because it brought me so much closer to my friends and it brought me closer to myself. I have learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about the areas that I still have some room to grow in that maybe I didn't know about before, or wasn't as aware of. I've learned so much about my strength and my grit and my resilience and my depth that I didn't know about. I've learned so much about my friends and about what I value in friendship. I've learned about how to nourish my body. Like, what a journey that's been this year. Learning about LEA and REDS and about, like, we're not messing around when it comes to fuel. And I feel like now I have a non negotiable stance on food. And on days where I'm tempted to be like, oh, I probably don't need as much food. I didn't move as much today. No, sister, no. That's an NO for you because we're not messing around. You need to eat even if you feel like you didn't earn it. It doesn't matter what you feel like. It matters what the facts are. And the facts are you need to eat. Full stop. And so I feel so much stronger with my disordered eating than I ever have. And that feels incredible. And I wouldn't have had that without this experience. I think I would still be under fueling 100%. And fueling my body appropriately is going to be a lifelong journey, but it's one that I feel I've taken huge strides on. And a big part of that has been learning and investing in myself in that way. So hiring somebody to work with has been really important, and having support, and even investing in myself like that's been a huge part of this. As a mom, I think sometimes it's hard for us moms to invest in ourselves. And if it's not hard for you, fantastic. I love that for you. But for those of us who do struggle with investing in our time, our money, our energy, our bandwidth into ourselves, and experiencing a little bit of mom guilt, I really want us to not, and to do the thing. And I feel like now I feel so much more confident in my ability to invest those things and to know that my sport, my recreation is critical to my presence. And if I want to be a present human being, then it's necessary to invest in myself in this way. So that's a whole other episode, I think. But the weekend overall was just incredible to watch these dear, dear women who've worked so hard for the better part of a year, training their butts off, to watch them do it, to be able to see them on course and then see them at the end was so cool. And such an honor and a privilege to be able to witness that and to be able to be like, that's my girl. That's my girl right there. And to watch them own their first, I think it was a first for almost everybody. We'll see. Carrie was doing, I think, one of her first relays. Joanna ran 15 miles for the first time. Kaylin did her first marathon. And then Kirsten, Melissa, and Erica did their first 50Ks. And Allie redefined what it meant to have a finish line that was different than the one that she set out to have. What an incredible crew! Like, what? How are these my friends? I'm so lucky to have these incredible friends and to watch them have these journeys. It's just been amazing. And I'm just thrilled. I really am. It's been a journey for sure. And, it's been almost a week that I've been sitting with the emotions of the weekend. And I'm whew, still processing, there's still some grief in here and some sadness. I would love to just jump to the next thing and be like, oh, I'm going to do this race. But I think what my injuries have really taught me is that they haven't taught me this, but they've reminded me is that we have to hold all of our goals really loosely, and that over identification with a goal can actually cause more harm. There's a Buddhist teaching that attachment is the root of suffering. And I think that a big part of my suffering has been an over identification as an ultramarathoner. I wanted to be this thing so badly that not being able to be the thing feels so much worse than not being able to do the thing. And so I'm learning in real time right now, really how to have a goal and have it be held loosely, because this year I've had to set so many goals aside. I started the year in January with the longest list of goals, and so far I've had to set so many of them aside and not take that personally, not take that as a failure, but as just, it's not meant for me right now. And this was not my race. I don't understand why. I don't know if I ever will. I don't know if I ever get to see the big picture and point to a moment and go, that's why I didn't get to run. I don't know if I'm ever going to get that. But I do know that holding things loosely is so important. And I've learned that lesson before. And this is just a reinforcement of that. And so it's been a painful reminder of that, but it's so important. And so I'm trying really hard to not jump into the next thing, which I'm really tempted to do because there's so many good races out there. There's the Desert Peak 50K in April that I've got my little sights set on because I love the desert so much. Even though I'm terrified of rattlesnakes, I think it will be fine because there's so many people running. But, I've got that one. Or there's, a couple of 50Ks out here in Portland that are so good. And I'm trying really hard to follow what Deepak Chopra says. I hope I didn't just butcher their name, but be here now. And I'm really working overtime in this moment to be here now, like literally be where my feet are. And when I had the boot on, that was kind of my mantra. And I even wrote it on my boot, be here now. Just to be where my feet are and not to get too far ahead, lest I end up so disappointed and so heartbroken over not being able to achieve my goal or to be a part of a team or to feel massive FOMO, which, by the way, ADHD folks out there listening, you might, I don't want to make a blanket statement, you might experience FOMO a little bit more intensely than other people. Fun fact. There's I don't like labels, but sometimes they can be helpful. But there's a thing called RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is where criticism, sense of failure, rejection, and FOMO are experienced like tenfold by those who have ADHD. And so I also think that part of that plays into my experience. Um, I'm sure that that falls on a spectrum, as I think everything does. I think it's all on a spectrum. I don't think it's one or the other. I don't think you have it or you don't, that you experience it or you don't. I think it's all a spectrum. And I just want to put that out there in case anybody is like, oh my gosh, I've experienced this. Yes, totally. I just want to put that out there that you're not crazy and you don't feel too much. Your feelings are not too big. It could quite possibly be that this is just how your brain works and this is how you experience these intense feelings that don't feel good, anyways, but they might feel even worse because this might be a spectrum that you are experiencing. So, side note. Okay, that is my experience of the Wild Woman 50K 2026. What a trip. Wow. Training, injury, friendship, badassery. Wow. Incredible. So thankful, so humbled, so inspired, motivated, challenged, everything. This experience has run the gamut for me, which is why I keep talking about it. I'm also really excited to move on because it has been so painful. I'm really excited to move on and to balance being here now where my feet are and also looking forward and holding my plans and goals really loosely. Because the next thing, am I contradicting myself? I hope this doesn't come as a contradiction, but the next thing on the calendar is literally a week of backpacking. And I'm going to spend a week with my friend Julia, and we're going to go do Section J of the Pacific Crest Trail, which is the Alpine Lakes region. I'm so excited right now. If you can't see me doing the happy dance, because I love backpacking, it is my deepest love more than any other form of recreation. I love backpacking. There's something so empowering and magical about having everything you need just on your back. Holy cow. And have it weigh like 30 pounds and you're good to go. Wow. Amazing. So I'm actually going to go film a video for YouTube about what's in the backpack. So if you haven't followed Aligned Heart Adventures over on YouTube, you could do that too. There's also a couple of articles about it over on Substack, Aligned Heart Adventures. You can check that out because I love talking about backpacking. So we'll probably be amping up on that and talking about hiking for the summer, how to avoid ticks because there's a tick outbreak everywhere, which, can I just be honest about this? I've been hiking for over 20 years now. Holy cow. And I've been backpacking for 15. Knock on wood, I have never seen a tick. There, I said it. May this not be the year because they scare me so bad. I know a couple people with Lyme's disease and it terrifies me. So I'm praying I never see one. I'm sure it's inevitable, but I've never seen one before. And I keep hearing about it and I see pictures on the internet and I'm like, that's gross. So how to avoid them, we're going to talk about that because I've got some ways. I've got some ways that are some that are natural and some that are a little chemical, but there are ways to help repel them. And then if you have ideas for what you want to hear about talked on the podcast, drop me a DM, slide on in there at Aligned Heart Adventures over on Instagram. That's where you can find me and you can drop me a note and say, hey, Kim, do you know anything about this? And if I do, great. If not, I'll get myself educated or point you in the right direction for your query so we can have more ideas about what to talk about on here. But I'm so jazzed. We can also talk about paddleboarding and kayaking. We can talk about biking. I'm not a super pro about that, but I do love it. It's so fun. We can talk about all the things. Tent setup. We can talk about tents. Oh, we can talk about anything you want to talk about, but it's going to be fun. So I hope you are here and you're enjoying these conversations. If you are, would you mind doing me a solid? Would you like this podcast episode, or would you like the show on wherever you're watching or listening to, whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts? And then if you have a sec, would you mind writing a quick review of the show? If you've got some positive notes for me, would you just type those in real quick? What that does is it helps get more promotion of the show, and it helps other people find it so that they can be helped out and connected too. If you have a sec, that would be amazing. So, like, subscribe, review, all those things help. Sharing episodes is great. You can easily share an episode if you're like, oh, I know somebody that would love to listen to this. It's really easy to share an episode. So those are some great ways that you can help promote the show if you like it. If you've got ideas for what could be better about it, I'm all ears. I love constructive feedback. It makes me so happy to hear your thoughts. Truly, I don't take it personally. I just want to grow. So, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've got questions about ultra marathon running and where to start, or just trail running in general, I have become a wealth of knowledge. I don't know it all, and I have so much to learn, but I've also learned a lot. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Or, like I said, if I don't know the answer, I'll point you in the right direction. Okay. Thanks, friends. I'll catch you next time.